Hello learners, welcome to NII Studio. This is live Vidya program for Science and Technology secondary course of NIOS. I am Neelam Gupta, course coordinator of Environmental Science. Welcome you all in this live Vidya program. As we know that the environment means everything that surrounds us. It includes our house, garden, town, shops, hills, road, river, ocean, air, soil, sunlight, and we also include plants and animals around us. All these things mixed, and we say this is environment. When all surround the things, those is known as environment. So now we talk about when we talk about natural environment, then what we include? All living and non-living things that occur either naturally or artificially, basically naturally on earth, that constitute natural environment, and their life is regulated by the environment, and in turn they influence the environment. So we can say environment and its all components is a vibrant and complex or intricate entity. So if this is environment, then we need to think twice before doing anything that would disturb the delicate balance between the environment and its various components like living and non-living both. But how do we know what effect our activities have on environment? In order to nurture our environment, we need to understand its various components and their relationship. So this is part 2 of the program. So in our previous program, lesson is natural environment. So we have discussed ecosystem and various components, and we are also talk about interdependence of autotrophs, heterotrophs and saprophytes in a biotic community. So during that program, we have also discussed about food chain, food web, different trophic levels and energy flow in an ecosystem. So before we start the second part of this program, first we recap what we have discussed in our earlier program. So we have talked about first biosphere. Biosphere is a very huge and can't be studied as a single entity. So it is divided into many distinct functional units called ecosystem, and we talk about its components. So living organisms draw their nutrition and oxygen for survival from the environment, and this process plants and animals interact with each other and also their physical environment too. So biological environment consisting of all organisms living in a particular area as well as the non-living physical component of the environment with which the organisms interact. So natural ecosystem, if we define, is an assemblage of plants and animals which functions as a unit and is capable of maintaining its identity, like forest, grassland, estuaries, and human intervention is an example of a natural environment. So natural ecosystem, when we talk about these ecosystems, is totally dependent on solar energy. And when we talk about types of natural ecosystem, it may be classified as a terrestrial ecosystem as well as aquatic ecosystem. Terrestrial ecosystem found on land, example are forest, desert, grassland, tundra. And when in case of aquatic ecosystem, plants and animals, those are found in water bodies, is known as aquatic ecosystem. An example of aquatic ecosystem is river, pond, lake, sea and oceans. We have also talked about biogeochemical cycles too. So biogeochemical cycle is a cycle in which nitrogen, carbon and other organic elements of the soil of a region are converted into the organic substances of animal or plant and released back into the environment. So this is a cyclic pathway by which chemical elements or nutrients or molecules move through the environment, unlike energy flow which is unidirectional. So, we have given you an idea about previous program what we have talked about. Now, we will talk about various services provided by an ecosystem, role of adaptation in the living world, various types of association between organisms and factors which are related to the population growth. So, what we are talking about or objective of this program is various services provided by the ecosystem, role of adaptation in a living world and benefits of cooperation in the various types of association like mutualism, commensalism and symbiosis, factors which lead to population growth too. So, first we talk about ecosystem services. We take all things from nature, we take when we breathe, we take oxygen, oxygen comes from plants, plants take carbon dioxide from the environment and by the process of photosynthesis they release oxygen. Forest, rivers, ocean also control the climate and this is also a natural check by on the pest by the predator and parasites, thus keeping the disease under controls. So, can you live, think, can you live without taking food or water? We can survive few hours or few days, but no, we can't survive without food or water so many days. So, where do you get them from? Right, you think we get from food from plants. So, plants and algae trap solar energy for photosynthesis and produce food for all organisms. Water, mineral, biomass, fuels, wood required to fulfill our daily needs, that all are provided by the environment or nature. So, think of many more services that are provided by our environment. So, although our environment provided us with so many valuable resources free of cost, the need of the hour is to appreciate its value and judiciously utilize the services so that we can leave them for our future generation. We walk with our legs, birds fly with their wings, but in case of whales, whales swim with flippers. And why are the limbs, all are limbs, but why are the limbs different in them? So, we will say we walk on land, birds soar in air and whales live and move in water. You are right. So, these limbs are adapted to the environment in which they live. So, we are talking about adaptations in organisms. So, adaptation are the special features that allow a plant or animal to live in a particular place or habitat or environment. So, can you tell how the frog is adapted to jump on land and swim in water? Answer is this: limbs help them to jump and frog have web limbs. So, web limbs helps in swimming. So, these living things that adapt themselves so that they can successfully compete for food, defend themselves from attack by other organisms, find favorable conditions to reproduce and respond efficiently to the changing environment. So, now we talk about the aquatic adaptation. First we will talk about any plants, later we will discuss about adaptations in animals. So, aquatic plants are called hydrophytes. Hydro means water and phyte means plants. So, how does plant live in water? Hydrophytes have reduced root system as water is available. Floating leaves have stomata only on their upper surface, while the submerged ones have no stomata at all. So, these leaves are thin and narrow in case of hydra, or long or flat ribbon shaped in Vallisneria. These adaptations protect the plant body from any damage due to water current, and stem may be long, slender and spongy to prevent them from getting carried away by water current. Example, we can take lotus. Flat leaves on surface plants are for flotation. The broader upper surface is coated with bags which act as water repellent. Example, lotus, water lily and many others. So, there are several examples for aquatic plants: water lily, hydrilla, Vallisneria, Pistia, water hyacinth, echinacea. And now we talk about aquatic adaptation in animals. We see so many aquatic animals. The animals that live on water have several characteristics, like they have streamlined bodies, means pointed at both ends, like fish, that reduces friction when the animal moves through the water. Smooth, almost hairless body helps aquatic mammals move through the water with little frictions. Webbed feet in duck that forms the thin skin between the toes work like paddle for swimming. Flattened tail that serve as oar. What is oar? In general, oar is a long pole with a flat white blade at one end used to row or steer a boat. Unlike paddles, which are held in the hands and move freely, oars are attached to the side of the boat using a pivot point. This is a general definition of oar. Fish has fins, and fins of fish help to swim, steer and maintain balance. A whale has flippers for swimming. Whale is a mammal. Long legs and necks in cranes help the bodies of wading birds out of the water. The long neck helps the birds to reach the water or below it for food. Blubber or frill, a thick layer of fat or oil stored between the skin and muscles of the body, provides insulation. Eyes are positioned on top of the head, which allows animals to hide in water and still detect predator or prey above the water. Transparent eyelids cover the eyes water of animals swimming underwater, and nostril positions near the top of the head allows animals to come to the surface to breathe in air. Nostrils close when the animal goes under the water, like whales and dolphins. Some fish have swim bladder, which is filled with air to help maintain buoyancy. Fish and aquatic invertebrates like prawn have gills for respiration. Now we talk about the next section for we have talked about aquatic plants and animals. Now we will move to next, that is terrestrial animals in plants. So first we talk about the terrestrial adaptations in plants. Terrestrial plants include mesophytes. Meso means moderate and xerophytes. Terrestrial plant have xero means scarce of water and meso means moderate. So mesophytic adaptations include several things. They are terrestrial plants which are adapted to neither a particularly dry or no particularly wet environment. They are meso means moderate. So mesophyte includes majority of the terrestrial plants which have various adaptations. They are generally require a continuous water supply and have large, thin and broad leaves with a large number of stomata on the underside of the leaf, lower side of the leaves. Roots of mesophytes are well developed, branched and provided with a root cap. Shoot system is well organized. When we talk about the xerophytic plants adaptations, they are desert plant, well adapted to the high temperature and water shortage. They are adapted to store and conserve water. Example, cactus. Adaptations that xerophytes may exhibit are succulent leaves and stem to store water, example cactus. Succulent means soft, fleshy, water storing structure. They have very few leaves or no leaves, which reduce rate of transpiration. Many desert trees and shrubs have thorn for protection from enemies and water loss. Fewer stomata to reduce water loss. Deep widespread root system caters to maximum water uptake. Now we talk about the desert adaptation which are found in desert animals. Most of the desert animals avoid being out in the sun during the day. Many desert mammals, reptiles, amphibians live in burrows to escape the intense desert heat. They come out during the night when the temperature are low. Due to constant exposure to high temperature, they need to maintain their body temperature at an optimum level, for which some of them have developed long body parts that provide greater body surface to dissipate heat. These animals have scaly skin, resistance to drying. Camel is an example, good example. Camel have a hump to store fat. A camel can drink very large amount of water in one day or survive for a relatively long time without drinking any water. They can excrete concentrated urine when there is water scarcity and thus reduces loss of water. Desert animals like reptiles have minimized loss of water by excreting urine in the form of insoluble uric acid. This ensures very little wastage of water. Now we talk about the adaptations in very cold and harsh conditions animals. So, adaptation to survive in extreme cold and scarcity of water. So, cold climate, we are talking about tundra and taiga. So, these animals which live in cold climate have very thick fur over the body to trap air and insulate it. They also have a layer of stored fat under the skin to give additional insulation. Body shape and size of many cold climate mammals is well developed to the cold climate conditions. They are round and bulky with short legs, ear and tail. These adaptations help to conserve heat. Penguins have a thick fur, thick layer of densely packed feathers to reduce heat loss. Its flipper and legs are also adapted to reduce heat loss. So, we have talked about cold condition tundra animals. Now we move to the birds or aerial adaptation in animals. Aerial means air, aerial animals, those live in air. Aerial animals include a small number of animals that are able to fly in air. These animals come to the tree or land or water for safety or shelter. These are also known as arboreal animals which dwells on trees. They may walk or run on the land or glide in air for a short while to land on the tree or ground. Flying squirrel, flying lizard, tree frogs, lemurs and monkeys belongs to this group. True aerial animals are birds and bats. These animals exhibit adaptations to balance themselves and stay in air, soaring or flying. These aerial adaptations include streamlined body to stir through the air. Wings are converted or modified from forelimbs to help them to fly. Birds have wings that are covered with feathers which trap air to keep the body warm and help the bird to fly. Bats have an extension of the skin between fingers of forelimbs which help them to fly, and bones. They aerial birds or aerial animals have hollow bones to make them flight. Flight muscles are very strong, are attached from the body to the wings. So, you know that all living organisms that are interdependent, otherwise it will be difficult to live together in a population. So, what is population? We will take a short break right now and we will move again after break. Before taking a break, we have talked about ecosystem services and role of adaptations in living world. Now, we move the next section, that is population interaction. So, when we define population, population is a group of similar individuals living in a particular geographical area, and population of different species of organisms living in a same ecosystem. So, when organisms encounter one another in their habitat, they can influence each other in a number of ways. So, sometimes these interactions may be harmful to one or both an organisms, or sometimes these interactions are beneficial too. So, such relationship can be characterized into different types depending on the interaction and the extent to which they associate. So, first we talk about mutualism. Mutualism is an interaction between the individual belonging to two different species that both benefit, interaction benefit both members. Example is lichen. Lichen is a completely entity formed by the association of an alga and a fungus. The main body of the lichen is formed by the fungus. The alga manufactures food for itself because alga has chlorophyll, and alga is capable to manufacture their own food, as well as for the fungus. While the fungus provided water, mineral and shelter to the alga. So, this is a relationship or interaction is mutualism. Next is commensalism. Commensalism is an interspecific interaction between one species that is benefited and other is unaffected, neither harmed nor benefited. Commensal relationship may involve one organism using another for transportation or for housing. For example, hermit crab lives in gastropod shell to protect their body. Suckerfish, second example, suckerfish attaches itself to the under surface of shark and gets a free ride. It is thus protected from its predator and is also widely dispersed in this way. Next type of interaction is parasitism. It includes one organism living in or on the body of the another organism, living organisms, from which it derives nourishment and in the process harms its host. Example is tapeworm or hookworm or roundworm, Ascaris, living in the intestine of the humans. Next type of interaction is symbiosis. This is a close interaction between two or more different organisms of the different species living in close physical association. So, you are quite familiar with pollination of flower, where the flowering plants are cross pollinated by the bees or butterfly and other insects, which benefit by the getting nectar from the plants. So, plants pollinated in this manner produces less pollen than do plants that rely on the wind to transfer pollen. So, this is also an example of symbiotic association. So, this is the term that relates to parasitism, commensalism and mutualism. Literally, the word symbiosis means living together. More important to us to understand is that emphasis on the interactions that involve a close relationship between two kinds of organisms. Now, we move the next section, that is, or last section, that is population growth. Population is an aggregate of individuals belonging to the same species, and population of any species does not remain static, it undergoes changes. So, now the question arises there, why does the population keeps changing? So, let us try to find an answer to this question. So, population is the change in the number of individuals of any species in a population at a given time, and size of population depends on several factors like density, natality or birth rate, mortality or death rate, population dispersal, age distribution and environmental resistance that the population has to face. So, first we talk about the population growth. The provision for life in a geographical area where a population lives is limited, only certain number of organisms can live comfortably in the area. When this number gets exceeded is the term population growth. Growth rate of a population is the difference between birth rate and death rate. When the birth rate is more than the death rate, then the population density increases. When we talk about population density, is a measurement of the number of people or humans living in a particular area of unit of area, typically calculated as individual per square kilometer or square mile. Birth rate is the number of living birth per thousand per unit time. In case of death rate, mortality rate of a population is the number of individuals dying per thousand per unit time. When we talk about the age distribution is the proportion of different age groups like children, working age, adults, seniors within a population, typically represented by the population pyramid. Next term is population dispersal or factor is a movement of individuals or group of living organisms by which they expand the space or range within which they live. Dispersal operates when organisms leave the space that they have previously occupied or in which they were born and settle in new areas. So, this affects the size of population, and population dispersal can be two types, emigration and immigration. What is emigration? Emigration is a permanent outward movement of the organisms from a given population, and it decreases the size of the local population. When we talk about immigration, is the permanent inward movement of the organism from outside into a given population, and it increases the size of the local population. Next, we use that effect of population growth is environmental resistance. Environmental resistance is the resistance that is present by the environmental condition to prevent the species from reproducing at maximum rate and thus limiting the species from going out of control. So, environmental resistance include both biotic as well as abiotic factors. Abiotic factor includes temperature and space and others, and biotic factors include natural enemies. So, environment also keeps a check on the rise in the population size. The physical and biological factors that together prevents a species from reproducing at its maximum rate is also known as environmental resistance. There is one word, that is carrying capacity, is the maximum population that environment can sustain indefinitely. So, growth of a population can be expressed in the form of a mathematical expression that is called growth curve, and it may be two types, S or J type. So, first we talk about growth curve. If the number of organisms is plotted against time, we get a curve which is called as a population growth curve, and it has a characteristic shape which we know, J shape and S shape. So, they are J shaped growth curve and S shaped or sigmoid growth curve. S shaped curve is a realistic model of growth and under constant, showing how system balance expansion with limits. When a small number of organisms first enter in a previously unoccupied area, the growth is slow at first as it adapts to new conditions and establishes itself. We start two forms of growth curve, J shaped growth curve and S shaped or sigmoidal growth curve. So, S shaped curve is a realistic model of growth under constraints, showing how system balanced expansion with limits. When a small number of organisms first entered a previously unoccupied areas, the growth is slow at first as it adapts to new conditions and establish itself. So, when we talk about S-shaped growth curve, so reproduction in these organisms takes place after a certain period of time. So, this is called as lag phase. During this phase, both mortality and natality remain small and relatively constant. Gradually, the growth becomes rapid and the population increases rapidly. Now, the natality rate increases while the mortality rate remains low. This is called as growth phase, and rapid rise in population is because of the availability of plenty of food and also because there is no competition between the biotic potential and the natural resources. But the number of organisms cannot continue to increase at a faster and faster rate, because eventually something in the environment will become limiting and cause an increase in the number of deaths. For animals, food, water and or resting sites may be in short, or predators or disease may kill many individuals. So, plant may lack water, soil nutrient or sunlight. Eventually, number of individuals entering the population will become equal to the number of individuals leaving it by death or migration, and the population size become stable. So, this part of the population growth curve is called stable phase, where the natality rate and mortality rate are approximately equal. So, this graph obtained is S shaped and is called the sigmoid curve. Next type of growth curve is J shaped. This curve describes a situation in which the population growth continues in an exponential form until the environmental resistance become effective. As the environmental resistance become effective, there is a stiff competition for survival and the growth rate stops abruptly. This is a sudden increase in mortality or population crash. So, this is all about, we have talked about the nature environment, we have talked ecosystem, biotic and biotic components, food chain, food web, ecosystem services and adaptations and population growth. So, now we are concluding few points what we have discussed those program. An ecosystem is a functionally interdependent unit of biotic and abiotic component of an ecosystem. Physical and chemical factor, plants, animals and microorganisms are the structural component of an ecosystem. Biotic community in a living together and sharing the same habitat by different organisms which are classified as autotrophs, heterotrophs and saprotrophs on the basis of the mode of their nutrition. All the living organisms are interdependent through food chains and food webs, and ecological imbalance is caused if any single species of the community is removed. Sources of energy for all ecosystem is solar radiations or solar energy, which is absorbed by the autotrophs of plants and passed to the consumer in the form of food. Energy flow in ecosystem is unidirectional, and the amount of energy that is transferred from one trophic level to another gets lesser and lesser as we go farther along the food chain. The nutrients move from the non-living to the living and back to the non-living component of the ecosystem in a more or less circular manner. These nutrient cycles are known as biogeochemical cycle. Biosphere, geosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere are the main component of the biogeochemical cycle. Adaptations are the features that allow a plant or an animal to live in particular habitat. Population of different species of organisms have evolved certain features that help them to live in close association. So, on the basis of the interaction and extent of the which organisms associate with each other, this association can be known as or called mutualism, commensalism, parasitism or symbiosis. Population does not remain static, it has changed. Population growth is the change in the number of individuals of any species in a population at a given time, and size of population depends upon the natality, mortality, emigration. Two, environmental resistance prevents a species from reproducing at its maximum rate, and population growth curves are either J-shaped or S-shaped. So, now we are come to the end. We will come again to meet you in new program of environment, science and technology. Till then, goodbye and thank you.